What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Caverns, the Dungeon.
Whoa!
All right, so we did a video a little earlier this week where we asked Cole 20 questions, 20 burning inquiries.
And they were hot.
They were hot, and his answers were hotter. But today we thought we'd dig a little deeper into the enigma that is Colsifer James Collington.
And that is my name. Do not blow me up. Don't dox me.
But today, guys, we're going to do a tier list of Cole's decks. So Cole is known as the most robust, prolific deck builder in our circle. So we're going to look at some unique decks today. We're going to rate them. Now, Cole doesn't know what I'm going to rate them. I don't know what Cole's going to rate them, but we're going to try and find where his decks land, at least compared to each other.
Right.
So with that being said, we're going to shrink down into the corner and take a look at what we got here.
Whoa, everything's so small now.
Oh no!
So let's establish kind of what the different tiers mean. Is it
Sure.
like S? Is this like power level?
Okay.
Or is this like coolness? Like, how are we doing this?
We're going to rank it based on viability. We're going to do a two-factor system. Viability of the commander and overall favorites. So if let's say we're looking at the first one there and you go, hey, it's not as powerful, but it's my favorite, we'll bump it up a little bit.
Sure.
Okay? Now, I know you said, like, what is S, right? Ironically, when I was setting this up, just a side thing, there is, on the tier-making website, a support link that just says, what is S tier? That you could click on to get a whole definition of S tier and its standings. But that being said, guys, very first deck, we're going to take them in alphabetical order. We have 20 decks. So we had 20 questions. Now we got 20 decks. Woo. Starting off, very first commander, Atagatog.
Yes, this is the Atagatog. This is a 5-color weird stuff deck. It's not great, but the mana base is awesome. And it plays around Atogs. The Atagatog he's Wooburg for a 5/5, and he can sacrifice Atogs to get plus XX until end of turn.
And there's a lot of Atogs in Magic history, right?
No. And there's about maybe 10 or 11 of them, and 4 or 5 of them that are any good.
I thought you were going to say there's 10 or 11... and they're all viable.
No.
It's like slivers, Atogs.
Atogs all sacrifice a certain thing. So there's Oratog that sacrifices enchantments. There's Foratog that sacrifices forests. So there's some interesting combos in there, but it is a deck that looks pretty innocuous until it ain't. And it does hit pretty hard, but it plays to my love of combat tricks and trying to hit for a lot of commander damage when you the least expect it.
I like this. I like this conceptually as a deck because you always want to go to like events or when you go out and you play in a play group, you want to see stuff that's like outside the norm. And this is definitely like if you go on EDH Rec and you're like top 100 commanders, you're scrolling for a while before you run across Atagatog.
Atagatog's at the bottom of that list. So
I think but I think it's pretty cool.
Thank you. I agree.
Okay, Atagatog. What are we thinking here? Are we thinking B? Because it's cool, but it's not powerful. So is this like setting the bar for everything else?
I'd say it's pretty middle ground. It's a cool deck because it's unique, but it's mechanically it's a little bit stupid. So we'll go B. We'll go B for that.
I don't know. You're like as you're saying stupid.
C-tier.
I'm like we're
let's say C tier because I think it's a deck that you can bring out anywhere, but at the end of the day, it is a little bit weird.
We'll go high C and then we'll see where it lands. If it needs to adjust up, we'll play from there.
Atraxa the Praetor's Voice. This is my first ever deck. This is, it's almost Wooburg. It's Wooburg minus red for a 4/4 with Flying, Vigilance, Death Touch, and Lifelink. And at the beginning of your end step, you proliferate. This deck has been with me through many different iterations. I've retired it. I've brought it out of retirement. I've changed it, but right now it's kind of focused on 1/1 counters. I think it does have some Planeswalker synergy, but it's primarily a 1/1 counters deck. I like it a lot. It's a spot for my doubling season. And if the commander didn't receive so much removal and hatred, I would say it's more viable.
You know why I see so much removal and hatred? Because you just said it yourself. It's a spot for my doubling season. It's a spot, it's in 4 colors.
Say what you will. I would say maybe put it in A tier. Because
it's definitely stronger than a Tog.
That's for sure.
So you think A tier? I would almost argue this is like S power,
no way, my man. It is not.
It's S for your decks. Like amongst the decks I'm looking at here. So I would say if it were me and I had to pick the decks I associate with Cole. It's Atraxa. There's 3 looking at this list where I'm immediate yeah, that's a Cole deck. That's a Cole deck, and Atraxa is one of them.
Oh, I'm very curious to see what the other 2 are. I'm very curious.
I think you know what one of them is. I think you guys know what one of them is too.
It has to be.
But I think the second one might throw you, or the third one might throw you off.
I have a guess that it might be a big green dinosaur, but we'll find out. We'll find out.
All right, so you want A?
I would say A tier, just because it's a deck that attracts a lot of removal, and it.
It's weird. So I can't see the camera, so I don't know if this is backwards or forwards. S. All right. We'll go A, even though I think you're selling yourself short there.
Okay. Next up, we got Davros, the creator of Daleks. This is from the Doctor Who precon. It's pretty much. It's 100% unchanged. I think it's a very fun deck. It's great to bust out at power tables that don't have that are just playing with precons. I love the villainous choices. It's a Grixis. It's great colors. I like it, and believe it or not, I'm gonna put it in probably B or C tier with the Atog there.
Okay, I like the villainous choice thing. I think that's one of the coolest mechanics WotC's come out with recently. And I kind of like that. And what's the other one? The Valier that's in there that makes you do it twice.
Right, the Valeyard. He doubles down on it. There's also Missy in there if you're playing with Plains Chase. There's a lot of really fun options in here, and I've enjoyed the deck every time I've played it. It was my only dub that I took home from Command Fest the most recent time that Cory and I
Which is weird, because then we played a game where I played your deck. I played this deck, and I got so mana screwed.
He learned a lesson about Shadow that day, folks. He learned a lesson.
All right, so you think B or C?
I mean, just to create some range here, I'd say let's put it C.
C? Yeah. Is it above or below the Atog?
It's probably a bit more, maybe a bit more consistent than the Atog.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's more consistent, but it might be a little lower on the originality scale, because Atog is just such a weirdo.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
I think it's a good spot. All right. Speaking of weirdos, I want to know how you explain to the people how you play this next commander, because it's a little out of the box.
So, I mentioned earlier, or in a video earlier this week, that I have a deck that has no, artifacts in it. This deck is a entirely creatureless deck. This is Erebos, God of the Dead, who himself is an enchantment. If you don't have enough devotion, he remains an enchantment and never becomes a creature. So this deck has no creatures in it, and it does a pretty alright job of surviving and getting to a point where I can assemble enough black mana to pump out a really great Exsanguinate and then a Wound Reflection or something, an absolute powerhouse black card.
Well, and he comes with card draw and stuff like that too, so just having that bit of value is really nice.
Life manipulation, but the card draw there, you pay 2 life, and you draw a card. So sometimes if I'm just looking for things to do or to build, sometimes I have so much mana I have nothing to do with it. I can pump it into Erebos, get my life total down low, and then repay in kind, set everybody to my life total for a change. Has a lot of ways to protect itself, so it has a lot of board wipes and the glacial chasm type effects. But I think it's a very fun deck. It just provides a lot of black hateful enchantments that painful quandary, lethal vapors, things that are going to make the game a lot harder for all your opponents. Tons of fun.
All right, I'm gonna lead this one off. I think this is B.
I was thinking the same thing, Cory. B.
I think this is no Atraxa, but it's definitely better than Davros. It's got a little bit more of a unique flair to it because it's not a precon that you've messed with. It's just like a whole new creation. And I think you go in a direction that other people don't go with, which is just all enchantments. I never want to turn this thing on. The only other one I usually see like that is Heliod, which is, I never want to turn this thing on, life gain.
I used to have a Perforos deck that was a lot of the same. I'm a huge fan of the Theros God Cycle.
Leaving them indestructible.
Indestructible enchantments. I get used to it.
All right. Next up, the Big G.
GTG, Gandalf the Grey. This is my riffraff. My main goal is to blow up and then act like I don't know nobody. This is an Izzet Spellslinger Storm burn deck, and it's honestly a little bit schbusted. It pops out crazy, you're building up Arcane Bombardment, you're building up Storm of Saruman, and you're trying to copy a Crackle with Power, or a ritual into a Crackle with Power, and then blow up the whole table in one fell swoop. It's City on Fire, the deck. And it's one of my favorite decks that I've built this year, and maybe in the last couple years.
Yeah, and I think again, of the Lord of the Rings stuff, I mean, it's not the Gandalf everyone's building,
right?
So again, it's a little unique. It's it's a nice little twist. All right, Gandalf.
Do you want to say... Whoa! Okay. All right. If we're talking about it at the same time, I would reveal it to you as 3, 2, 1. Surprisingly S tier.
Is it S tier?
Yeah, I think it flies under the radar and creates a really powerful game state.
So what you're saying is,
I think Gandalf is a little bit stronger than Atraxa because Gandalf doesn't, he after 4 spells is he's removing himself and does the opponent's job for him. So nobody's removing him. He lets me fly under the radar until I can take advantage of the game, and it's over for everybody else.
So your argument is Atraxa needs those pieces to work. Gandalf is his own self-serving engine.
And I mean, somewhat, because Gandalf, you need cards, or you need spells but it's a spell slinger deck, and I have a lot of those, discard a card, draw 2 cards, create 2 treasure tokens, big score, things like that, where I'm trying to get cards off the top, I'm trying to draw cards, and fuel my big spells. Tons of fun. I really like it.
All right. Next one is one I actually thought about building when it first came out. And I kind of pumped the brakes a little bit because, eventually that build list just...
Sure. We've all been there.
Giada, Font of Hope.
Yeah, now you say GIF, I say GIF, or no, but I say Giada in this case.
You don't say Giada.
This is actually the Angels, They're Just Like Us secret lair deck. It's a full precon secret lair. It's all about angels, and it's a ton of fun. I've taken it a few cards out and swapped them to make it run a little bit faster because a lot of angels are high CMC without refilling your hand. But it's a fun deck. It's probably not going to be super strong in the right circumstances. It can be maniacal, but I would put it probably C tier for Cole.
I agree with that. I think Giada is one of those like angels are that creature type that everybody always wants to make work, and it's very hard because it's like you've got. Was it Liesa or whatever her name is?
Liesa, the angel.
But that's not really like angels. That's just an angel that does like banana stuff.
It's got some fun cards in there, and if you are, if you draw the Soul Ring, you're dropping some pretty good angels that game. But if not, you might not even get online. All
right, I'm thinking, what are we talking like? Probably
for my personal deck, I know Giada lovers don't.
Giada lovers
don't at me. But
if you're like a Food Network, and you love Giada de Laurentiis.
So
it's like an attack right here.
My Giada deck is easily a C tier deck, but yours is probably way stronger. So pop that actually before a Togatog. I think a Togatog is
right there.
No. On the other side, a Togatog is actually stronger than that.
Whoa! Yeah. All right, you are correct. By the way, the other one I associate with you very heavily is Galta, but that's because when I first started playing, I think that's the first deck you ever played.
That very well might be true.
With me,
That very well might be true. The Galta is a deck that I've had for a long time. It's Galta, the Primal Hunger. So this is going to be a 12/12 trample for 12, but it usually ends up only costing 2 green mana. This deck it's on the outside. It looks like a Timmy, smash 'em up deck, but it ends up being almost a little bit more combo based. It has a lot of really fun cards in there, like Ooze Garden and things that are going to take advantage of, Life's Legacy, Greater Good, being able to recast Galta a lot on your own turn. I've won games by Altar of Dementia, sacking Galta enough times to mill out my opponents. So it is a very fun deck, and I think it's a really surprising deck to play against. It's mono green, and so it has some mono green kind of older stacksy cards, but it is so much fun to play.
Yeah, I think this is one of those commanders that, like, if you're a newer player or an experienced player, it rewards you for playing green well. Like, all the things green wants to do. Do you want to ramp? Galta's going to reward you for that. Do you want to play Mana Dorks? Galta's going to reward you for that.
You get double the value out of your Mana Dorks because Galta's cost is reduced by the power on the table. So a Mana Dork taps for 1 green, but reduces Galta for 2, including that mana.
Yeah, so a Llanowar Elves is like tapping for 2, or Birds of Paradise.
You're very quickly casting Galta. It's never going to be turn, it's usually turn 2 or 3, maybe turn 4 versus a later turn in the game. Like, she comes out very quick and starts threatening life totals very quickly.
All right, I'm thinking Galta's an A or maybe an S.
I would argue like it's a combat damage based win con, so it can be a little bit difficult to carry out all the time. I would say A tier. Personally, I would say stronger than Atraxa.
Bullshit. Who said that? All right, there we go. Stronger than Atraxa, allegedly.
Allegedly.
All right, next we have everyone's favorite dungeon-dwelling hunchback.
Yes. This is Grinzo, the Dungeon Warden. He's all focused on power 1 and less creatures, so I'm actually he's an X and a black and a red, and you can flip cards off the bottom of your library, and if their power is less than or equal to Grinzo's, they come onto the battlefield. If not, they go into your graveyard. And so I have this based all around power 1 creatures. It's kind of it took a lot of the empty, or I had a Shizo's Caretaker deck that I broke apart, and so all those cards went into Grinzo. It's more of a casino where you're flipping, you're putting it all on red or black and trying to get a couple of good creatures.
Like a little chaos warp on a creature,
right?
Yeah.
So I think it's a very fun deck. It's entirely random, and so it's not very consistent, but it makes for unique gameplay.
Okay.
Just to where do we put this one?
Yeah, so I think fun factor plays a big role in things because you want your games to be memorable. I almost said miserable, but memorable.
Maybe both.
Yeah, if you play Toxrill, you want both, right? Memorably miserable. But I think you're right. There's like a chaos element to it,
right? I would say that, not to fill up this C tier, not to kind of undersell myself here, because I do think I have strong decks, but it's all later in the alphabet. I would put Grinzo maybe in C tier above a Togatog.
Okay, so but below Daxos?
Yeah,
or
Davros.
I don't know what's Daxos. All right. Next up, we have everyone's favorite hetero boys.
Kanaeus and Tiro. This is my
just two bros broing out.
This is my Gates deck. I have 10 Gates in this deck. I call it my Gates X Machina deck, where I'm trying to get 10 Gates so I can complete my Maze's End Windcon.
It's like the keen of the 9-finger.
9-finger keen. Unfortunately, you can't put that in there because it does have black. This is every color except for black, and it is it's a bit of a group hug.
Which is weird because one of them is definitely blank.
It's a fun deck, but it is something that I have kind of taken a lot of parts out to fluff out my other decks. So it is probably going to be my only entrance into the D tier on my whole list, just because it's a deck that it needs a little bit of love dedicated to it. The love between Kanaeus and Tiro, I need to give to this deck.
Yeah, I think like as commanders go, they're really neat commanders, but they have definitely been subject to power creep over the years. Next is something that we actually gave out. If you saw us at Command Fest, we gave not one, but many of these out. Laughless.
This is Lathos the Dragon Queen. This is a really fun mono-red dragons deck that is all about building up treasures and pumping them into big red dragons. Lathos she's a 6/6 and she has a ability where you can pay 2 and fire breathe your dragons and make them stronger. So I'm wanting to build up big stockpiles of mana and swing out with a massive horde of flying dragons. It is a awesome deck, and I actually also run the Dragon as a alternative commander to this deck, keeping all the mono red mana base, just because I build up enough treasures that if I need to cast the Dragon, I can.
You get a little cost reduction out of the command zone.
Right.
I like this one. I think that for me this falls under the like quintessential Cole commander. Like maybe not S, but I could see like a low A, high B kind of situation going on here.
You know, I would love this deck to take home more wins, but I often just get foiled because dragons are so big and scary and they're right there on the board. Often they don't survive a couple rounds. So I would unfortunately put this probably B tier above Erebos.
Okay.
And this is just comparable to my decks. I'm not saying that these decks are like, weak in any word.
Like you at home may not necessarily have a D tier right here. You might have an S tier. You really pump it out.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make some variety here.
Okay. Next, I think this is one of your more creative decks.
Thank you.
This is Heretical Healer?
This is Liliana the Heretical Healer. So this is baby Liliana. She flips from a creature into Liliana, the Defiant Necromancer. And it is a powerhouse mono black deck with all the playable Lilianas, a ton of really fun mono black legends, and it's a deck that plays differently every time, but is pretty consistent with like a semi-aristocrats playstyle, but it really just focuses on all my favorite mono black cards that I've collected over the nearly 10 years that I've been playing Magic the Gathering seriously. So I love this deck. It's one of my absolute favorites, and if I'm going out playing, you best believe that I have this in my backpack.
I also think we talked about when we asked you 20 questions, one of the questions was, is Cole a Timmy, a Johnny, a Spike, or a Vorthos?
Right.
I think this is the closest you have to like a Vorthos style deck where it plays well, but it's also like, hey, I want to pay homage to a character.
Absolutely. This deck is, I think, a fun deck to play against because it showcases so many fun Lilianas, and it sometimes even turns into a little bit of a mono black Super Friends deck. It's a good time.
All right. I'm thinking. Here's the thing. So I think it's somewhere here. Like, I don't think this is a Galta Atraxa level deck, but I feel like it's got to be higher than Daleks.
I 100% disagree with you, Corey.
No?
I would put this probably up above Galta.
Above Gandalf?
No, I would say Gandalf takes home a surprising amount of dubs.
It's not about taking home the dubs. It's taking home the internal dubs.
I would say put Liliana, like right there.
Are we talking S or are we talking high A?
High A above Galta.
Yeah. I think high A is a good settlement, because if you said S and I was floating around B, A seems about a good medium here. All right, next we have Marchesa, the Black Rose.
Everybody's favorite to hate commander. Marchesa the Black Rose.
I'm surprised, by the way, when we did the Salty Commander episode, neither of us, this didn't blip on either of our radar, was Marchesa, but it is one. You're right, with the whole like never-ending cycle of creatures that don't die.
It becomes a little bit difficult to play against, but it is a really fun deck. I play mine as a Wizards sub theme. It's not, I wouldn't say a Wizards Kindred deck, but it is take advantage of a lot of Wizard synergy. And so this is my other, the other She-Ray stuff went into this deck. It went into Grenzo and Marchesa, because Marchesa brings herself back. It was kind of the way for me to upgrade She-Ray and keep the feel of the deck while changing the theme by swapping out the one power or less creatures for wizards and things with a lot of like fun ETBs. So this deck is almost entirely creatures. It is a little bit of artifact based ramp, but it's I think something like 45 or 47 creatures in it at any given time. It's a very fun deck.
I think this one and the next one are your most like creature heavy decks, just by nature of what they are.
I mean, that's for sure.
All right. So we're talking like here, like a low D into E, right?
Very funny, Corey. I would say...
Am I getting warmer?
Warmer. Probably going to be either B or A tier for me. Again, Marchesa, she's all about dethrone, so she wants to keep her life total low. A couple years ago, this was one of my strongest decks, but nowadays it typically gets hated off the table pretty quickly.
So what are you thinking?
I would honestly, I'd want to say A tier for this one.
Sure.
Just because I want to respect it, probably less than Atraxa.
It's A tier for sure because it gives like Grixis gang brownie points. So if it's Grixis, I'm gonna nudge it up a little bit.
It feels good to be bad kind of vibes.
It does. All right, next we have Marin of Clan Neltoth.
Right.
I would say this is, like I said, your other, like, by nature of what it is, just creature deck.
Yeah, this is a bit of a pod deck. It has a lot of like creatures at every mana value. I'm trying to build up and get my experience counters until I'm eventually able to do my 12 12s and
your
stuff like that.
Your Spore Frog loops.
Spore Frog is in the deck, and that is probably the most annoying card. Growing up, or when I first started playing Commander, I played with a guy who played Marin, and it was a dreadful experience. But I think Marin has come out to be a pretty run of the mill Commander at this point. With how power creep works, I think it's a very fair and fun but grindy deck, and it has a lot of creatures in it. It's awesome graveyard recursion, and Marin's great. I mean, you can't hate on experience counters.
Yeah, I think for the most part, all the OG experience counter ones have fallen into this like, they've been power crept on, but they're that still nice, like it's decent power level. It's still fun.
Sure.
The only one I would think is still potentially busted is like Mizzix
of the Ismaz.
Only because you could just dump your hand, essentially.
Absolutely. And that has a lot of combos in it. It can go a little hard.
Yeah, whereas like Azuri, you're really getting a benefit once per turn. Marin, you're getting a benefit once per turn. Sure. That's the only one that's like not hardcore busted. I'm thinking...
I agree with your placement. It was either going to go on the left or the right of Lathless. I think that's a great placement.
I kind of see like Lathless and Marin being almost equal, like equivalent power levels.
Lathless has more like kill power, but Marin has like more sustain and grindability. Because like late game, if you're able to recast her, you can keep out bringing on threats. But I would say they're about very similar.
Now I'm seeing a pattern like a mirror start to emerge here.
Kind of a bell curve.
Yeah, really. Yeah. So obviously the next two are going to be B. Speaking of B, we're talking about the brother.
Whoa.
That is clearly the B tier of the two brothers.
So, Mishra, the eminent one. This is another Grixis deck. It is this is a precon, tried and true. I haven't really changed out any cards. Wanted to keep it with the retro border. So this, it's a fun deck. It is cool, and it does have some very interesting interactions. And I would love to actually like kind of change this one out and upgrade it, because I don't really have a very dedicated artifact deck. But I would argue that this is, in terms of the three Grixis deck that are on the board right now, Marchesa, Davros, and Mishra. I would probably put Mishra at the bottom of those three Grixis commanders.
Yeah, I like it though, in the sense of it makes like 3/3 or 4/4 constructs.
4/4
that you lose at the end of the turn.
War forms, that you lose at the end of the turn.
But the idea of just getting like each turn, I make another soul ring that can attack somebody.
Yeah, you can do some very interesting things, and I have experimented with swapping out some cards. So I had like Memory Jar and stuff like that, which was pretty fun. But overall, it is it's a fun deck, but probably not. Very
so
strong.
you're saying it's lower than Marchesa.
Right.
It's lower than Davros.
Right. I would put it on D tier with my boys Kines and Tiro. Maybe put them above Kines and Tiro. Yeah.
So there's a lot of Kines and Tiro fans that are just rolling over right now.
Tell me about it.
So you actually have two Angel decks, but one is not necessarily Angel specific.
Yes, this is led by an Angel commander. This is Sigarda, the Host of Herons. This is my Enchantress deck that has no artifacts in it. So no Soul Ring, no Greaves. just trying to get raw value out of enchantresses, play enchantments, draw cards. This deck is so much fun. It is a Voltron deck, so you're often kind of having to make decisions about who you're going to kill, and it forces people to accept their fate in a and shuffle up for the next game. So I like this deck a lot. I love enchantments. I love strong creatures, and I love hard decisions. So
this is like the pressure deck, I feel like, from you. Like this and Atraxa are the two where I think of where you're gonna play it and you're just gonna kind of like slowly whittle away people's window to win, just like value wise.
It has a lot of protection from creatures, and Sigurd herself has hexproof, and she cannot be sacrificed. So it has a lot of contingency plans to keep her from dying, and if she does die, to return all the auras and enchantments back to her. So overall, it's a fun deck. It's pretty strong.
Let's say I'm thinking it's on par with Atraxa.
I would maybe put it above Atraxa and probably above Galta as well, because I have a lot of ways to get lifelink, and so this deck is surprisingly resilient through the late game with its ability to build up a life total.
All right, so next up,
bam,
and moving on,
the Scarab God, which I've talked a lot about. It's my favorite deck. It's Reanimator. It's Dimir. It has a lot of spell slingers. It does not have a lot of zombies.
It doesn't need a lot of zombies because it turns things into zombies.
Right. So I'm trying to steal things from other people's graveyards, but if their graveyards aren't good enough, I have plenty of fun stuff to steal for myself. It's a mill deck. It's my baby, and it's my most blinged out deck. It's a very beautiful piece of art, I think, and every game I play with it is a piece of art. It's a masterpiece.
Oh yeah, it's a piece. It's a piece, all right. All right, I'm gonna let you do this one because Sazerac,
the Silent King. This is the Necron precon, and just like my other couple precon decks, it's unedited. It's everything in there is as it came, just so I have something to play. At that kind of power level. The Warhammer precons were pretty strong as far as precons go, but this is a mono black artifact creatures deck that
reanimation.
It reanimates, it mills, it overruns. It's a very cool, very fun deck that I have not felt the need to change up because it's fun at the power level that it's at.
I think it's one of those ones where it has such a cool strategy, which is like black artifact creature recursion,
right?
And it's like, I know the one thing I want to do, and I'm going to do it very well.
Yeah, that's precisely
so, like right out of the box, Which, I mean, usually artifact creature recursion is like a Boros-y, kind of area.
Sure.
So it's neat to see mono black.
Yeah, and it does it very well. It's got some very unique cards in there, and if you like Warhammer, it's got some fun flavor cards in there.
Where are we thinking? I think out of the box, it's definitely above D and C.
Oh, I would put it.
I think it's an A-B kind of area.
Maybe B at the end before Erebos, like after Erebos.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's stronger than Davros. But it's not.
It's stronger than Davros, I think, just because the land base is better as well.
Sure.
Like if there was
because
nothing
it's a
else,
monocolored deck. You're not playing a lot of tapplands.
Next is now this one here.
Right.
One of the coolest, most unique commanders that has been printed in maybe the last 5 years. Like, it's just cool win con, cool deck building.
You're talking... Yeah, okay, because it's like an anti-Kindred deck, where all your creatures are the only one of their creature types. But it doubles as long as that condition is felt, any creature that enters the battlefield under your control. And so it plays similarly to a Miriam deck, although it doesn't get to break the rules and make doubles of legendary creatures.
Which we may see on if we do a tier list on my commanders.
Absolutely. This is a really fun deck, and I have it filled with every animal or beast type removal spell. So I have Beast Within, Swan Song, Resculpt, Rapid Hybridization, Pongify, Song of the Dryads, Kinrith's Transformation. I have tons of ways to add your creatures to my menagerie of animals.
I have 2 elves, have 2,
right, and I have the most fun creatures in there that you could double up on. I'm talking Scute Swarm. I'm talking Managorger Hydra. So it's a blast to play, and it is a surprisingly strong deck. I mean, it's Simic good stuff. So how strong can it be?
I'm tempted, just because it's a blast to play. It's one of those ones where even if you're on the other side of the table, it's just a fun game because you're seeing like creatures that you're not normally seeing because they went, instead of giving you 10 dragons or 10 whatever, it's like, no, this is my one dragon, and then I found a badger, and then I found like a hamster, and then I found, like you're finding these weird creature types.
I'd say slam dunk it into S, because it does have a surprising amount of removal, and it is a very resilient deck. As long as I'm able to, get my commander out, every Pathbreaker Ibex gives a lot of value. So that's a fun one.
All right.
Now, up here, we got Wart, the Boggart Auntie. This is Rakdos Wart, not Gruul Wart. And Rakdos Wart is all about returning goblins from your graveyard to your hand. You only get to do once per turn. She has fear. She always knows what berries to pick, what Kithkin to kick, and what to do when either goes wrong. And so she is a lot of fun, but that is my most flavorful Kindred deck. It is a deck that I've tried to put goblins in every single card and every art. It doesn't fit if it doesn't have a goblin in it. It is a fun deck. It again kind of goes into the aristocrats direction just because goblins lend themselves very well to that. But that's about all I got for Ward. She's cool, but I hardly ever even cast her.
When I put it here, I don't mean bottom D. I just mean...
Whoa, yeah. Because I would say probably stronger than my Sawzak, the Hidden King.
So then you're already up here, then.
The Silent King. Yeah, I'd put it in B tier, because it definitely has some potential...
Yeah, and I mean, there's always new... Especially with red, there's always going to be more goblins on the horizon that can...
It's a deck that's always getting, new prints for it. That's exactly right.
All right, last but not least.
Woo, we made it to Z. For Zurgo. He's in Z tier for being a Helm Smasher.
Z tier. He's in Z tier.
This is Mardu equipment. This is my Swords of X and Y deck. I have all the swords that are any good in this deck, and I have a ton of fun equipment. So if Zurgo doesn't come out and get Voltroned up, any of my other small, like Esper Sentinel and, funny little guys like that can become kings for a day. Zurgo, I obviously got World Slayer in there. I'm obviously trying to blow up everybody's lands, but for the most part, I think it's a very fun deck to play because, again, I'm a fan of making people make decisions, and when you have protection from every color, you're the one making the decisions.
All right. What are we thinking? To round it out, I mean, we go right there for some symmetry. We can bring it down for some symmetry. We can go up here.
I would put it in my B tier category.
Okay.
And I'm gonna actually put it in Lathless's spot. What? And I'm gonna bump Lathless
all the way up here.
Yep.
King of B tier.
You can put it right there, Corey, because I'm actually gonna take Lathless and bring her up to A tier.
What?
Yeah. I think that's what I'm settling on.
All right, you're happy with this structuring right here.
I'm happy with the structuring. I feel like I'm looking at my whole life right here in Magic the Gathering.
All right. There you have it, guys. This is the definitive can never change because there will never be power creep. He'll never make a new deck.
I'll never make a new deck. That's a promise.
This is the definitive listing of Cole's commander decks. Hope you guys enjoyed checking this out. Once again, if you like seeing these video contents like face cam, I guess, for lack of a better term, videos, let us know. Leave us a comment down below. If you think we got the tier list wrong, and you know that Cole's lying about Atraxa being so far down on the list, you just light him up in the comments.
Lifelink's OP. That's the only reason she gets so much hate is because Lifelink is OP.
But go ahead, smash that like button, hit a comment, all that good stuff. Next week, you guys, maybe we'll be putting the shoe on the other foot.
Absolutely. And
I will be forced to have a reckoning of my own because I think Miram is at least D tier Dragon Commander.
S.
But that being said, guys, we're going to go ahead and get on out of here. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will, we'll catch you Friday when the next episode of the podcast comes out.
See you then. Next week. or this week.
I'm leaving that in.
No.